Greetings YouTube. I just wanted to record another video. Again, you'll notice I'm in a bit of a different environment. I managed to find a nice quiet place where I could record some videos and not disturb anybody. So I think this is going to work for me for trying to knock a few more videos out than I have been able to in the past. So I just wanted to respond specifically on the videos that Ivan Mike had started with his unbalanced encounters, talking about encounter balance as a general concept. And then Azric posted a video where he responded to some internet threads and whatnot, and related topic talking about game balance in general, and then kind of the confusion about game balance being misinterpreted sometimes or misused as encounter balance, etc. So I just want to kind of address both of those topics within the same video. And I pretty much agree with just about everything that Ivan Mike had said in his video. In fact, I don't know that there's anything I could really say better or add to, because he pretty much covered all the subjects there in terms of I'm the kind of game master that doesn't really see encounters as something that should be balanced. That the game master goes in with kind of a mindset that this has to be equivalent to the PC's party level, average capability or whatever it is, and the concept that that the world kind of morphs around the PCs and scales equivalent to their capabilities isn't something that I'm generally fond of. Again, I'm not a party killer GM. I'm not a TPK GM. I don't set out to kill the players, but at the same time, I like more of kind of like an organic, kind of living, breathing world, and the things in the world are there for a reason. They are where they are for a reason. And so I don't like to kind of create a level of artificiality that honestly kind of breaks the suspension of disbelief for me. In that, where the PCs never encounter anything that's too tough for them to take, or they never encounter things that are just completely awash in terms of any threat level. And so, yeah, I mean, things are as they are, enemies are where they are, they do what they do, and if the PCs kind of stumble onto them, I will give them plenty of warning. I would never force an overbearing encounter on a group of PCs, but if they go knocking and they don't heed the warnings and basically they just go looking for a fight, I'll give them one. And so that's I would go back to Ivan Mike's video if you haven't seen it already, and it's definitely a really interesting subject, and personally I agree with you 100%. I don't believe in counterbalance as a real as any kind of mechanism that offers me anything in my games. In fact, I think it detracts from the experience of my games. And then so also I wanted to address game balance rather than encounter balance, which, as Azric mentioned, and I'll put a link to his original video in mine as well, again, because he says it very eloquently in a number of ways, and I don't want to retread a lot of that information, but that it's often confused with encounter balance or the other references to mechanical PC versus NPC or PC versus world balance. And I think he hits on a very solid point, a very important point whenever game balance is brought up, is that game balance really means that all the players are playing on the same, or on a level playing field, that everybody has fair opportunities within the game, that there's no intrinsic like winning and losing choices. And for me, that's what game balance means. For me, game balance is a game is balanced if there's no like this player will always win and this player will always lose because of the choices that they make in terms of the offerings of the game system. And so, but I think too that what separates me in terms of when I think about game balance is that I think a lot of people forget. I think a lot of people misunderstand, or maybe that's not even the right. Maybe that's not even the right term. Maybe it's not that they're misunderstanding, but maybe it's that I'm seeing things a little bit further, deeper, differently than most people like to consider, in that most people just take game balance at face value. They take game balance to mean numbers balance, to mean that these numbers are equivalent to these numbers are equivalent to these numbers. And so, if like the fighter wizard example, they kill stuff. That's what they do, and so they should be equally good at killing stuff. Okay, that's a fine analysis to draw, and it has a certain validity to it. But at the same time, just because a fighter has abilities that allow him to do this much damage, and a wizard has abilities that allow him to do this much damage, it's not quite as much, and then he has a couple of them that let him do this much damage, so it's more than the fighter. It's not, you can't just compare apples to apples in a sense, and it kind of harkens back to a discussion that I had on a Warhammer forum. It was actually for Warhammer 3rd Edition, and it was a thread talking about the Bright Wizard in 3rd Edition of Warhammer, and specifically a couple of spells, and people were complaining, well, the Bright Wizard is supposed to be like an artillery wizard. He's supposed to blast things, and he's supposed to do lots of damage, but his relative, when you really dig deep into the game system relative to the capabilities of some other characters and some other character actions, his damage capacity isn't where it should be. Why does he do less damage than the Waywatcher's Arrow Storm or something, something to that effect? And people were just completely missing, and it was so obvious to me, and I don't know why. Again, maybe it's just a difference in thinking, in that the Waywatcher with his Arrow Storm and the Bright Wizard with his Fire Blast. I said, nobody else seemed to catch on to the fact that a Bright Wizard's Fire Blast is fire. Okay, maybe it doesn't do as much like exact, direct, mechanical wound points of damage as the Arrow Storm does, but it's fire. And so fire has qualities that an arrow doesn't. A Waywatcher could throw 1,000,000 arrows at a barn, and it's not going to do anything but kind of cut Swiss cheese holes into the side of the barn. But a single fire blast, that kind of otherwise unimpressive, relatively speaking, fire blast, one little blast, and he can set an entire barn on fire. You lock your enemies into the barn, and that takes care of the situation right there. The other one of the things to consider is that in this example, the wizard, the Bright Wizard, doesn't have to have anything on him to create this fire blast. He doesn't need a bow, he doesn't need arrows, he doesn't need to line up a shot. All he needs to do is draw some energy, and boom, he can blow fire out of his hands. And it's those kinds of things that mean game balance to me. You can't just assume that something's going to be balanced because the numbers line up. Likewise, you can't assume that something is going to be unbalanced because the numbers don't align. You have to look deeper. You have to look at what these things represent. And where game balance has meaning for me is that everybody has an opportunity to kind of have their element and be cool in that element, without detracting from the elements of the other characters. I don't